In this video, we have these questions to solve. We're given two samples, and it is required that we study the patterns above. Look at these two samples. We have to study the patterns and then use the knowledge from what we are going to study there to answer these questions. Alright, so we have these two samples. We are going to go find out how or what actually this sample is all about, then use the knowledge to solve these questions. Now, you would remember that in our last class, I told you something that when you are given a quantitative reasoning problem, because you were not the one that brought out these samples, you may not, sometimes, it might not really be easy for you to immediately see the sample and then tell what was done there. Because you were not the one that formulated this, you were not the one that brought it out. So, most times you will do some trial and error check. Alright, and that is what I am going to do here. Even if I was the one that brought out this sample, I am assuming that I am not the one. I am just thinking, okay, I wasn't the one that brought this sample out, someone else just wrote it, and say I should use what I am going to learn from here to solve this question. So what will I do? I will start thinking of things about plus, minus, times, divide, and even sometimes maybe square, a number raised to power something, So I like this number square, the other number square. I'll start thinking of them. Which one can work here? Now, I also told you in that last class that it is best, although it is not a law, it is not a rule, it's just a suggestion. Are you getting me right? It is best most times to try to get the biggest number. Are you getting me? So just like here now, I will use these two numbers to get this biggest one. And here also, I'll use these two numbers to see if I can get this biggest one. And remember, after studying one of the samples, if the reasoning makes sense to me, I will go to the second sample, follow the same pattern I read the first sample to confirm if my reasoning is correct. So are you ready for us to do our trial and error check? Alright, so in sample A, let me check this pattern. What if I do 11 plus 11? 11 plus 11 is 22. No. It didn't give me 121, so it's not plus. It's not 11 plus 11. Just forget about that. Let's think about what if I do minus? 11 minus, no. 11 minus 11 is 0. I can't get 121. Wow, what is happening here? So I've tried plus, I've tried minus. Okay, can we try maybe multiplication, division? I'd like to try multiplication first. Okay, now let's do 11 times 11. From multiplication table, I have learned my multiplication table very well. What about you? Please make sure you learn it. I've always advised you to do that. 11 times 11 from multiplication table, the knowledge tells us that it's 121. Oh yeah, I think this reasoning works. 11 times 11 is equal to 121. That's good. Okay, so but would you be too quick to take that reasoning and say this is the correct thing? You have to confirm that reasoning. If the pattern is actually 11 times 11 equals 121, so come here, follow the same pattern and see. I got 121 here, so I will now try to get this 42. And this 121, I got it from 11 times 11. So following that pattern, I'm expecting that if my reasoning is correct here, then 6 times 7, just the same way I went like this, should be equal to 42. And 6 times 7, yeah, that's correct. 6 times 7 is 42. Okay? So I think that pattern is this times this equal to this times this equal to this. I think I've gotten it. It worked in both cases. And so I will go and label. Let's call this X, let's call this Y, let's call this Z. And the same way I will label this X, Y, Z. Okay, we say that the pattern is 11 times 11 equal to 121. And then here, 6 times 7 equal to 42. You know why I labeled? Because I want to bring out just one formula, possibly, that I will use in solving all these questions, so that I will not stress myself. I don't like much stress. Okay? So let's do that. This is 11 here, and I use x to replace it. So that side will be x times, okay, x times, let me use black marker to write it times. The second 11 here is y, and that will be equal to 121, which I use z to replace that side. So that's the formula, x times y equal to z, following the alphabet I used in labeling it. The same thing here, 6, I use x to replace it, then times 7. I used y to represent 7. So I'm going to put y here, and that will be equal to 42 is z. So you see that the formula I'm going to use is x times y equal to z. I'll come here and label all of them in the same way. This side is x, this is y, and this is what? Z. The same thing, this is x, this is y, and this is z. X, this is y, and this side z. Again, x, this is y, and this one is what? Z. Now that I've labeled everything, I think it's now time for us to solve. I'll write out here that the formula is, so I think what we got is x times y. So x times y equal to z. And this gets me ready for question number 1. Let's see how sweet, and fast we are going to solve this question. All we now need as we work with this formula is the knowledge of simple equation, which in this case, because we have times, times, we should be thinking of things like dividing both sides by coefficient of the unknown, things like cross multiplication when necessary. So let us find out. In question number 1, x is equal to 12. So I'm going to write out x equal to 12. And then we have that y is equal to 9. Y equal to 9. And what's the value of z? We do not know the value of z. So z is question mark. Z is the unknown. Alright, so let me remember the formula. Recall that the formula is x times y equal to z. So I'll now come to the formula and start substituting. Substituting, which means replacing. What is the value of x in question 1? X is 12. So I will replace this x with 12. Y is 9. I'll replace this y with 9. And that is equal to z. What is my z? That is the unknown. So I will still write it z. That's what I'm looking for. Now, what I'm looking for, which is z, is standing alone. There is nothing with it there, okay? So you just have to multiply this directly and get your answer. 12 times 9 from multiplication table is 108. And that will be equal to z. Therefore, I've gotten the value of my z. Z is 108. That is simply the answer. So you see how fast and sweet I've used my formula to solve it. I'll come over here and write that z is 108. Okay, now let us move on to question number 2. Question number 2. Meanwhile, do you have any question here? Or you understood what I did there? Remember, if you have a question, quickly send your question immediately, okay? Don't waste time so we can solve any problem you have there. Question number 2. Again, I will write out the value of my x, y, and z. Coming over to this x, what is the value of x? I don't know. So I'll put question mark. X is the unknown here. That's what I'm looking for. Alright, please, let's make this 54. 54, okay? Not 56. It's 54 that I wanted to write before. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so that's 54. Let's go. What is the value of y? We have that y is equal to 6. And then z. The value of z, let me put it here, is equal to 54. Z is 54. Okay, what is our formula? Our formula is x times y equal to z. So I have to remember the formula. Going to the formula, I will replace x, y, z by their values. What's the value of x? I don't know. That's what I'm looking for. So I will still write x. That is the unknown. Times, what's the value of y? Y is equal to 6. And that will be equal to z. What's the value of z? Z is 54. X times 6 is the same as 6x. So 6x equal to 54. X times 6 will give us 6x. It is not compulsory to write this thing out. You can actually start solving from here again. Just move on straight from there. But I just have to bring it out for you to see clearly and know that if you multiply a number by an alphabet, it's just to combine the number and the alphabet together. Between here, there is multiplication. That is between 6 and x. So we now have 6x equal to 54. I want to get x, which is the unknown. Did you notice that this x has coefficient here? The coefficient is 6. That is 6 times x. And so, to make x the unknown stand alone, we need to divide both sides of the equation by the coefficient of the unknown. And once again, the coefficient of the unknown is 6, the number multiplying the unknown. Let me write it out, please. At this point, I'm going to do dbs by 6. Okay, let me just write fully this time around. dbs by coefficient of the unknown. As we move further, I may not write coefficient of the unknown in all cases. I might just put dbs by that coefficient. Alright, let's go. Divide both sides by coefficient of the unknown. And what is the coefficient of the unknown here? Which in this case is 6. Which is 6. The coefficient of the unknown is 6. So I'll come to the left hand side, 6x. I'll write it down and then divide it by 6. And that will be equal to, in fact, let me use blue marker to write that coefficient of the unknown for you to see clearly. And then I would have on the right hand side 54. I would divide this 54 by that same coefficient of the unknown, which is 6. So if you look at this, on the left hand side, this 6 will cancel this 6. We'll be left with x. X will be equal to 54 divided by 6. And then this 54 over 6, 6 can divide 54. How did I know that 6 can divide 64? From our past classes under rules of divisibility. How do you know that the number can be divided by 6? If 2 can divide the number, and if 3 can divide the number as well too. So if 2 and 3 can divide the number, 6 can divide it. 54, 2 can divide it. Please, you can check back in the rules of divisibility by 2 to find out that 2 can divide 54. Again, 54, 3 can divide it. You can check back on the video of rules of divisibility by 3 to find out that 3 can divide 54 also. Now, because 2 and 3 can divide 54, it means that 6 can also divide 54. And of course, from our multiplication table, if you go to 6 times table, you will find out that 6 can divide 54 9 times. 54 divided by 6 is equal to 9. Is that okay? Actually, let me show the working here. We have 6 divide 6. You have 1. And then 6 divide 54. That will give us 9. Yes. 6 divide 54. You get 9. No remainder. Therefore, you will do 6 also divided by 6. You get 1. And our answer gives us 9. That's the answer. So you see, it's a very simple thing. From here, I notice that what I am looking for, which is x, has a coefficient. What is multiplying it? Therefore, you divide both sides by the coefficient of the unknown. I could have done divide both sides by coefficient of the unknown from here directly without bringing this down. There is no error. It's still correct. Alright, question number 2. The value of x here is equal to what? 9. That's what I got. Let's move on to question number 3 and see how we get the value. Can I solve question number 3 somewhere here? Alright, question number 3. I'm going to put 3 here. In question number 3, x is equal to 5 over 3. So I'm going to write out x equal to 5 over 3. And then what is the value of y? We don't know the value of y. So y is equal to question mark. And then z is equal to 3 there. Let me write z equal to 3 here. The formula for solving this problem is x times y equal to z. And so just like we did for question 1 and 2, quickly go and replace, substitute the value of x and y and z in this equation, in this formula. X is 5 over 3. And then that will be times y. We don't know the value of y, so I will put down y equal to z. The value of z is 3. Now, 5 over 3 times y. This y that is here is the same as y over 1. y over 1. Anything standing alone is over 1. This 3 here that is standing alone is also over 1. Therefore, I will come here and do numerator times numerator. 5 is numerator. This y is also numerator. I've told you it is over 1. So 5 times y will give us 5y. 5 times y will give us 5y all over 3. Remember, in the denominator you have 3. And that will be equal to, you come here, you put down your 3 on the right hand side. Now, did you notice that we have a single fraction now on the left hand side? And on this fraction that we have here, the unknown, which is y, is a numerator. Therefore, we need to do cross multiplication. You see, I don't need anyone to tell me this anymore. I see that there is a single fraction here. And what I am looking for, the unknown, is part of that fraction. The unknown there is the numerator. Therefore, I will do cross multiplication. Remember, this 3 standing alone is over 1. This 3 standing alone is over 1. So if you are doing cross multiplication, 5y times 1 will give you 5y. Are you following? Okay, just for this question, let me show you something. Let me just put over 1 here. I may not write it in other questions to come. Then the cross multiplication, I said I'm going to write it here. You should do cross multiplication. CN, that's cross multiplication. And to cross multiply, you know what to do. I've explained 5y will multiply this number down here because it's going this way. You're going to have 5y times 1, which is the same as 5y. And that will be equal to this 3 will cross multiply with this 1, you know, this way. 3 times 3, which will give us 9. So 5y times 1 will give us 5y equal to 3 times 3 will give us 9. At this point, we now have 5y equal to 9. Oh, very difficult. Don't worry, it's simple. Just the knowledge of simple equation, that's all. Now take a look. I am looking for y. Y is the unknown. Did you notice that y has a coefficient which is 5? Therefore, do you need anybody to tell you to divide both sides by the coefficient of the unknown? Not at all. I don't need anyone to tell me that. I already know the mathematics step whenever I see something that has coefficient of an unknown. If I see an equation with coefficient of the unknown. Therefore, I am going to do dbs from here. dbs by 5. You see, I told you I will not write the full grammar anymore. dbs by 5. 5 is the coefficient of the unknown. So that's going to give us 5y divided by 5 equal to 9 divided by 5. You see, on the left hand side, 5y, you divide it by 5, which is coefficient of the unknown. And then you go to the right hand side, 9. Divide that 9 by the coefficient of the unknown, which is 5. Let us look at what happens on the left hand side here. This 5, we cancel this 5. Then y will be left. Bring down the y equal to 9 over 5. 5 cannot divide 9 completely. If you go to multiplication table, you notice that 9 is not a multiple of 5. Therefore, 5 is not a factor of 9. We have studied all these things from our past classes under factors and multiples. And because 5 is not a factor of 9, it means that 5 cannot divide 9. All these things is just multiplication knowledge that you need. 5 cannot divide 9 completely, okay? So there are two things you can do here. Either you leave the answer like this, or you can decide to change the answer to mixed fraction. So let me write or. I'm sorry I wouldn't explain this mixed fraction thing, but I promise you that when we treat fractions, you will learn how to change improper fractions to mixed fraction. Now 5 can go into 9 just one time. That would now be one whole number. The remainder will be 4. The remainder will be 4. So it will be remainder 4. Divide that 4 again by the denominator 5. So this is our answer. Either you leave it as 9 over 5 or you leave it as one whole number 4 over 5. So I will come to question number 3. the value of y is 9/5, or like I said, you can write it as one whole number 4/5, and that's the answer. Now we are moving on to question number 4 to see how we get the value of x. And now we have question number 4. Okay, now look at the diagram of question number 4. Let us see what we know and what we do not know. In question number 4, you see clearly that x is the unknown, so x is equal to question mark, we don't know it. The value of y was given to us, that part is 2/7, and then z, we know the value there to be equal to 2. Just like we've done for other questions, the next thing we have to do is to remind ourselves of the formula, which is x times y equal to z. X times y equal to z. And then we will substitute for x, y, and z using this formula. Now from here, we don't know the value of x. So following the formula, our x, will still write x because that's what we are looking for. After x, you see times, so you put your times there. Next, you will meet y. The value of y here is 2/7. So in place of this y, you put 2/7 equal to z. In place of this z, z is 2. So you write 2. Okay, now this x standing alone is over 1, okay? So this x is numerator. You do x times 2. Numerator, they will multiply. X times 2 will give you 2x. Okay, this x standing alone is over 1. I've said this before, if anything is standing alone, a number standing alone, alphabet standing alone, it is divided by 1. But that one is invisible, we don't usually show it. If a number is also standing alone, it is times 1. An alphabet is standing alone, it is also times 1. But we don't show it if it is either times 1 or divided by 1. We don't usually show the 1. So this thing is over 1. 1 is a denominator, so that one will also multiply. 1 times this denominator 7. So it's going to give us over 7, okay? I am done with this. X times 2 gave us 2x, then all over 7. The next thing you meet is equal to, the right hand side you have 2. This 2 standing alone is over 1. Take note. Now from here we have a single fraction. You can see the fraction here on the left hand side. And what we are looking for, the unknown, which is x, is part of that fraction. It is the numerator here, as you can see. Well, the principle of simple equation, the mathematics step there tells us that if we see something like this, a single fraction, where the unknown is either numerator or the denominator, what do? Cross multiply. So you don't need anyone to tell you that. You should have it at heart, as you have learned the principles of simple equation. So here I will write cross multiply. To cross multiply, remember this is over 1. I have said that. So this 2x will cross and multiply that 1 there. 2x times 1. So we're going to have 2x times 1. And that will now be equal to the next cross multiplication will go this way, which is 7 times 2. 7 times 2. Alright, 2x times 1 will give us 2x. Remember, we don't show that 1. That 1 will now become invisible. 2x times 1 will give us 2x. The next we meet is equal to 7 times 2. Oh yeah, 7 times 2 will give us 14. Alright, let me just write the 14, but I'll still clean it. Because why I am not going to leave this 14 here, I will still write 7 times 2. Why I will still clean this 14 is because I want to bring down this 7 times 2. So that in the next step here, I am going to divide both sides by the coefficient of the unknown. You see, if you have something about multiplication and division, if you can divide, please divide before you multiply. Multiplication increases your number, while division reduces it. So if you can divide first, it's better so that the number will be smaller. If you multiply, the number becomes big. Like in this case, I am meant to do divide both sides by 2. 14 divided by 2. Well, 14 is not that big. But suppose you have a bigger number. Would you go multiplying that? So please, I will leave this as 7 times 2. So that from here, You see clearly that this x, which is the unknown, is carrying a coefficient. 2 is multiplying it. Therefore, what do? That is correct, dbx. Whenever you have coefficient of the unknown, I am looking for this unknown x. It is carrying a multiplier which is 2. So I'm going to do dbx by 2. Divide both sides by the coefficient of the unknown. So the left hand side 2x, I'll have 2x over 2. The right hand side is 7 times 2. I'll divide it by 2. You now see how sweet the division of the right hand side will be. I'll no longer be stressing myself. 14 divided by 2 is something can just cancel out from there straight. Alright, 2 divided by this 2 will give you 1. So they'll just cancel out. 2 here 1, 2 here 1. 1 times x will give you x. X divided by this 1 in the denominator, you'll still have x on the left hand side, which is the unknown. It is standing alone now. Then go to the right hand side. These 2 will divide these 2. This 2 divided by 2 gives you 1. 2 divided by 2 gives you 1. So it's as if they cancelled out. 7 times 1 will give you 7. Divided by 1 will still give you 7. So I will write my 7. And I've finished solving this problem. X is equal to 7. I will come to this question number 4 and then write 7. That's the value of x. We have solved this question. So you see how I use this formula. You see, after studying this pattern, I used this formula to solve all 4 questions. All I needed was just the knowledge of simple equation. In our class today, you have learned about dividing both sides by the coefficient of the unknown. You've learned about cross multiplication. Please watch and rewatch and watch this video again so that the knowledge of simple equations you've learned will be there in your memory. Let's put together everything we've learned in the introduction of this quantitative reasoning so far, talking about simple equation from our last class down to the class today. We've explained that when you are dealing with simple equation, like in quantitative reasoning, most of the problems we have, they lead to simple equation. You need 3 major principles of simple equation. One of them is when you collect like terms. And when do you collect like terms? When in the equation you have plus and minus, okay? Then you have to collect like terms there. Then principle number 2 is that of cross multiplication. When do you cross multiply? You cross multiply when you have a single fraction in your simple equation. And in that single fraction, the unknown will either be a numerator or a denominator there. Just like what we have here. See, I cross multiplied. And then finally, the third basic principle. The third basic principle is when you divide both sides by the coefficient of the unknown. And we say that happens when what we are looking for, which is the unknown, has a coefficient. What is the coefficient of the unknown? That number that is multiplying the unknown. The thing that is multiplying the unknown. For example, in this case, we are looking for x. And x is being multiplied by 2. So 2 is the coefficient. Whenever you have something like that in simple equation, divide both sides, the left and the right hand side of the equation, by that coefficient of the unknown. Having said all of this, please remember how important multiplication is for us. Because once we have the idea of multiplication, by the time we are doing divide both sides by coefficient of the unknown, we'll be playing with all those things, because the division will be very simple. Alright, I'll be seeing you friends in our next class. Please remember to study your books. Remember to watch these videos and practice what you've learned. You can solve the questions I've solved already. Copy the questions to your book. Copy it into your book, the questions. Then solve the questions and see whether you get the same answers as I've solved and gotten. I'll be seeing you in the next class, alright? Take very good care of yourself.